There's a moment in Death of the Inhumans when Blackbolt finally breaks his silence. He blasts the doors of a Kree stronghold and walks through it alone, his voice already ripping through the soldiers in his path. This isn't just an act of war, it's a funeral. As he moves forward, step by step, he speaks the names of every Inhuman the Kree have slaughtered, one by one, each name delivered with the weight of mourning and the force of destruction. Because Blackbolt isn't just avenging his people, he's grieving them, with the only voice they'll ever have. As this isn't a story about redemption, it's not about survival, it's a eulogy, and Donny Cates makes sure you feel every word of it. Death of the Inhumans isn't just a dramatic title, it's a promise. And by the end of this brutal 5-issue miniseries, that promise is kept. What unfolds is a cosmic tragedy soaked in grief and silence. A story wrapped in war paint and whispered regrets. But to understand why this hits as hard as it does, you have to know where the Inhumans came from, and why, by 2018, Marvel was ready to burn them to the ground. The Inhumans were never meant to be frontline icons. They were oddities and outsiders. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1965, they first appeared in the pages of Fantastic Four, not as major players, but as mythical curiosities lurking on the edge of Marvel's sandbox. Blackbolt, Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon, and more were characters designed less to headline books and more to haunt the margins. They were noble, strange, and almost alien. A people not defined by their powers, but by silence, secrecy, and sacrifice. And for decades, that's where they stayed. Beloved by some, but ignored by most. That is, until Hollywood got involved. In the early 2010s, Marvel Entertainment faced a bizarre corporate problem. They didn't own the movie rights to the X-Men. Fox had those locked up, and with mutants headlining some of Marvel's most profitable comic properties, there was a growing frustration from the top. The solution in hindsight seems insane, but at the time it was very real. Marvel would sideline the mutants in the comics and elevate the Inhumans as their replacements. The push was aggressive. During the events of the Infinity crossover, which is an amazing book that you should totally read, Blackbolt detonates a Terrigen mist bomb which causes the gene-changing mist to sweep across Earth, activating latent Inhuman DNA in ordinary humans. Suddenly there were dozens, if not hundreds, of new Inhumans popping up everywhere. Books were launched like Inhuman, Uncanny Inhumans, All New Inhumans, and the most popular of the lot, Miss Marvel. There were crossovers, and even a TV show was greenlit before anyone really asked for it. But fans could see what was happening. And worse, they could feel it. The Inhumans weren't rising naturally. They were being forced into a spotlight that didn't belong to them. And then, somewhere in the late 2010s, the wind shifted. Disney acquired Fox, the X-Men were coming home, and suddenly, the Inhumans, once propped up as the new flagship race, were obsolete again. Marvel pulled back on promotion, cancelled titles, and like unwanted royalty, the Inhumans found themselves abandoned on the outskirts once more. That's the context in which Death of the Inhumans arrives, a swan song for characters who were never really allowed to speak for themselves. Donny Cates gives them that voice, and Ariel Olivetti would draw their gravestones. The story opens not with hope, but with bodies. Over 11,000 Inhumans lie dead. Their corpses are twisted into a silent message, etched into stone and flesh. Join or die. It's not a metaphor, it's a threat from their Kree creators. In response, Blackbolt summons the 4 queens of the universal Inhuman tribes to answer the call, to unite in the face of extinction. But the Kree have already planned their next move. When the royal family arrives, the queens are dead, their bodies arranged like theatre, an ambush cloaked in ritual, and the trap is sprung. A corpse rigged with explosives detonates, and in a single instant, Triton is taken from them, and Medusa is badly injured. It's cruel, it's efficient, and it's just the start. Back on New Arctulin, Lockjaw is sent to retrieve Blackbolt's brilliant but quite mad brother Maximus. But the Queen's killer, Vox, has already arrived. A creature bred from fear and control. Vox isn't just a killer, he's a super Inhuman built for war, utterly loyal to the Kree. He tears his way through the city, towards Maximus, whose genius can't stop this unrelenting force. But just as all hope seems lost, Lockjaw arrives to defend his master's brother. But this isn't a story where the heroes win. Vox unleashes his power on them both, and Maximus is lost. But the real loss is Lockjaw, the one figure of comfort, loyalty, and love in this cold cosmic bloodbath is seemingly obliterated alongside him. The emotional weight of that moment is hard to articulate. We've seen heroes fall, we've seen gods die, but Lockjaw? Lockjaw was a good boy. Loyal beyond reason, brave without hesitation. He didn't wear a crown or a cape or have a battle plan. He just always showed up when it mattered. And when he's taken, it doesn't feel like a casualty of war. It feels like something sacred being broken. His death isn't just a loss, it's the fracturing of hope. And it only keeps getting worse. Karnak volunteers to make contact with the Kree. He brings Blackbolt's offer: surrender and face judgment. Their answer is a knife to the gut. As Karnak falls, his king steps forward. Blackbolt walks into the fire, and with his voice, he wipes out their soldiers. Each word an inhuman name, each name a death. A black eulogy spoken in destruction. But while the Kree die, Karnak is taken, held by Vox, ever the self-sacrificing king. Blackbolt uses sign language, requesting that Vox spares Karnak and take him instead. And so Vox does. But then comes the blow no one saw coming. Vox slits Blackbolt's throat, and just like that, the Midnight King is silenced. Or so we're led to believe. Stitched up, healed, and captured by the Kree, he is put in a cell as a symbol of the Kree's defeat of the Inhumans. But a cage cannot hold a king for long. Weakened his voice may be, it is still just enough for him to escape. And deep within the Kree stronghold, Blackbolt finds what's left of Ronan the Accuser, a figure who once embodied the pride of the Kree Empire. He was their judge, executioner, and warlord, a man who had stood both against and alongside the Inhumans. Now he's been hollowed out by the very people he served, twisted into a half-machine abomination, stripped of purpose, reduced to a tool. The Kree didn't kill their symbol of strength, they humiliated him. And in the shadows of his own shame, Ronan begs for mercy. Not revenge, not redemption, just forgiveness and an end to his suffering. Blackbolt leans in close and grants both of Ronan's desires with a whisper: "You are forgiven." Across space, the royal family turns to one of their few remaining allies for help. A very drunk Beta Ray Bill. Bill is a warrior of honor, forged in storm and loss, and has fought beside gods and kings. But he turns the royals down, not wanting to get involved in their conflict. That is, until he hears of Lockjaw's death. The news hits hard and Bill's fury is immediate. You see, Lockjaw had been his companion on more than one cosmic journey, a trusted friend in battles across time and space. And now that bond has been severed, and Bill doesn't join the fight out of duty, he joins it for revenge. Meanwhile, Blackbolt has engaged Vox in combat again, and this time he's losing. That is, until Bill's hammer crashes into Vox's face like a meteorite. The blow seems to shake something loose. The cold, unfeeling killer stumbles, suddenly confused. Gone is the executioner. What's left is a frightened man asking where he is. Crystal hears the voice. She recognizes it and steps forward, but she gets too close and pays for her kindness. A blast erupts from Vox and Crystal is seemingly disintegrated. In a flash of rage, Karnak strikes, killing Vox, but when the mask comes off, the horror only deepens, because it's Maximus. You see, Vox isn't a person, it's a system, a repurposing machine. The Inhumans they thought were dead weren't killed at all. Vox's voice didn't mimic Blackbolt's power, it mimicked Lockjaw's. It was teleporting them, taking them away to be experimented on and rewritten. Their minds scrubbed and replaced with programming, transformed into twisted, loyal soldiers, built to serve without question. And now it's Crystal's turn to be erased. The royal family and Beta Ray Bill fight their way through the Kree, carving a path through soldiers, but nothing prepares them for what waits inside. They come face to face with Crystal and Lockjaw, transformed into Vox-controlled weapons. There's no time to reach them. The battle is desperate and painful. They're forced to fight the very ones they came to save. Meanwhile, Blackbolt breaks away from the team. He ventures deeper into the stronghold alone and finds them. The missing Inhumans, dozens of them, transformed, masked, and programmed to kill their king. His own people are now soldiers for the enemy. There are no words at first, just tears for what he must do. One final, quiet moment for what's been lost. And then, with one final act of mercy, Blackbolt unleashes the last of his voice. A scream so powerful, it destroys the Vox transmission system and kills every Inhuman in its path. The blast ends the program and returns Crystal and Lockjaw to themselves. Crystal is shaken and altered by what she's endured, but is thankfully conscious and free. And loyal Lockjaw is alive, breathing, and back at their side. And then Blackbolt returns. His voice is gone, and with it his powers. Whatever made him a king has been burnt away with his people. He's just a man now, mute, scarred, and utterly spent. They ask him quietly, "Where do we go from here?" He lifts his hands and signs a single word: home. And just like that, the Inhumans vanish. Not in glory, not in defiance, but in silence. Because this was never the end of their world. This was the death of what it meant to be Inhuman. What stays with you after Death of the Inhumans isn't just the body count, it's the silence that follows it. The moments where grief sits heavier than any scream could, and no one carries that weight more than Blackbolt. His defining moment doesn't come in a final scream or last stand, it comes in silence. As he kneels in the ashes of New Arctulin, his home, his people's last refuge, now reduced to wreckage and memory. There are no speeches, no vengeance, just a king brought to his knees, not by a weapon, but by the weight of everything he couldn't save. And for a man who can level worlds with a word, he says nothing. A tear falls, and in that single panel, you understand everything. This is who Blackbolt is. Not a god, not a tyrant, but a man haunted by his voice, shaped by silence, and forced to carry the grief of an entire civilization on shoulders that never truly asked for it. He doesn't fight because he believes he'll win. He fights because if he doesn't, there'll be no one else left to. That's the tragedy at the heart of Death of the Inhumans, and Donny Cates leans into it with brutal precision. He doesn't write Blackbolt as an icon, he writes him as a man being worn down to the bone, dragging the last threads of a legacy behind him like a funeral shroud. And when Blackbolt says his final words as he unleashes his full voice to obliterate the Vox system, it isn't rage, it's mercy. The only thing he has left to give his people. Medusa is his counterpart, and her arc here is quieter but no less powerful. She's a queen without a kingdom, holding together the last pieces of a family she's already lost too much of. Her grief doesn't explode, it settles beneath her skin, but she doesn't fall apart. She endures, and that quiet strength is what holds the rest of them together. Karnak, by contrast, is unraveled. He volunteers to deliver Blackbolt's ultimatum to the Kree, and they repay him with the blade in the gut. Later, when Crystal is seemingly disintegrated by Vox, it stuns him. There's no riddle, no flaw to point out, just a man lost in grief he can't rationalize. For a man who's always defined himself by clarity, it's one of the most disoriented we've ever seen him, and it feels human in a way he rarely allows himself to be. And Lockjaw is the emotional anchor of the book. His death marks the point where the tone shifts from tragic to cruel. For both the reader and the characters, it's a breaking point. And when he returns, alive but changed, it's not a victory, it's a moment of breath. A flicker of warmth in a story that's been stripped of comfort. Cates understands exactly what Lockjaw means to this world, and he spends that emotional currency with devastating control. And then there's Maximus, the unstable genius who's always danced the line between villain and victim. When it's revealed that he's been turned into a Vox, it hits differently, not just because he's dangerous, but because he's aware. Just enough of him is still there to understand what he's become. His death is fast and brutal, but it lands like a mercy, not just for the others, but also for him. In the end, Death of the Inhumans doesn't strip power away from these characters to humiliate them. It does it to show what's left when the costumes, titles, and destinies are burnt to ash. What remains isn't glory, it's pain, but it's also resilience. The royal family ends this story broken and scarred, but they're still standing. And in a book filled with execution, that might be the closest thing to hope it has to offer. All the grief, silence, and unraveling we see in the story, it's not just in the writing, it's right there in the art. Because for a book like Death of the Inhumans to really land, the visuals can't just look good, they have to feel heavy, Ariel Olivetti, best known for his slick, digitally painted work on books like Punisher War Journal and Cable, shifts gears here. His usual style leans big and polished, but in this series, he holds back. The characters still feel solid, almost sculpted, but there's a weight to them, a stillness, like they're carrying too much. It works perfectly for a story about loss. The visuals never overwhelm the emotion, they sit inside it. Honestly, it might be my favorite thing Olivetti's ever done. And then there's Vox. His design is terrifying because it's so blank. An armored suit with sharp lines and no face. Just that red visor cutting through everything. There's no human in him, no expression, no hint of who he was. He's not a person anymore, he's a signal, a weapon. And his design drives that home. It even echoes Blackbolt's design from Earth X. That same stripped down approach where identity has been stripped by control. While intentional or not, the message is clear. Vox isn't just a villain. He's what happens when individuality is overwritten by obedience. When Death of the Inhumans launched in 2018, it wasn't the start of something. It was a funeral, and fans knew it. For years, Marvel had pushed the Inhumans as replacements for the X-Men, but it didn't stick. The characters felt misused, the new ones didn't connect, and the old ones became overexposed. And by the time this series came around, it didn't feel like Marvel was trying to save them anymore. It felt like they were preparing to bury them. I didn't come into this as a diehard Inhuman fan. I'd read the big books like Inhuman, Uncanny Inhumans, and Inhumans vs. X-Men. Some of it was ambitious, and some of it worked, but I never really connected to the characters introduced during this era. They felt distant and disposable, and sadly were easily forgotten. But by the time I reached the final issue of this series, I did care. Not because the deaths were shocking, or because the mythology suddenly clicked with me. It was something quieter and sadder. It was the sense that something had finally given out. That a long, strange, often misunderstood chapter of the Marvel Universe had been pulled apart, grieved for, mourned in pieces, and then quietly left behind. Because Death of the Inhumans doesn't pretend a legacy is untouchable. It doesn't protect icons. It strips them down, exposes the cracks, and then asks what's still worth holding onto when everything else has fallen away. It's not a story about redemption or resurrection. It's not trying to make the Inhumans cool again. It's about accepting that not every story ends in triumph. Some just end. And sometimes that's what gives them weight. This isn't a reset, it's not a revival, it's a eulogy screamed in silence. And what makes it powerful is that it doesn't end in glory or promise. It ends with the wordless king, burnt out and broken, signing one last message to the only family he has left: home. Because Death of the Inhumans isn't about what was lost, it's about what's left, standing in the silence. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into comics, characters, and the stories that shaped us, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to watch these. Do you miss the Inhumans, or were you never a fan of them? Or do you just know them from that terrible TV show, or when Blackbolt's head got burst like a pimple in the Doctor Strange movie? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to know what people actually know about these characters. And remember, whether it's a single issue or a trade, there's always another page to turn. Keep reading, and I'll see you next time.